The horror comedy film directed by Osgood Perkins, The Monkey, is now out in theaters, and last night I went to go watch it. Now, this film is based on a short story written by Stephen King with the same title, and for that reason, I was really excited to go watch this movie. Now, if you want to read the short story before you go watch this movie, you need to buy Skeleton Crew. This book here contains many of his short stories, including The Monkey, and that's basically what I did. I read the short story, and last night I went to go watch the movie. Now, I've said this many times before. Longlegs is my favorite. I think Longlegs is the best horror film from 2024, and it was directed by Osgood Perkins as well. So when I found out that he directed this film, The Monkey, I knew I was going to enjoy the movie. That being said, there will be spoilers to this video, but if you haven't read the short story or watched the film, I highly recommend the short story. Like many of his other books, Stephen King's other novels, great writing, solid plot, you'll definitely enjoy the short story. Now, as for the movie, if you don't like blood, gore, dark humor, I wouldn't recommend this film here. But if you can watch a movie with tons of gore and dark humor, I highly recommend watching this film. It was fun to watch. But that being said, let's start with the review. Now, let's begin with the short story. Again, I read the short story before I went to go watch the film last night. The idea of a cursed toy was not original, but the way that Stephen King wrote the short story and created this cursed toy was awesome. I loved it. You know, the way that he describes this monkey, the monkey isn't physically threatening, right? It's just a monkey, a toy. But there is definitely something sinister about this toy, and you can feel it throughout the short story. So again, the idea of a cursed toy is not necessarily an original idea, but the way he did it was awesome. And I also like that you don't really get where it came from. It was a mystery. Hall's father was in the military, and he went around the world collecting these weird knickknacks and whatnot, and he bought this monkey from a foreign country. And that adds on to the mystery of all of this, the curse, the monkey, and everything. Now, the biggest thing that I loved about the short story is how you get the impression of how people died, even though Hall was nowhere near the freak accidents, right? In the short story, people around him begin to die, and Hall is never around the deaths and the freak accidents. You just get the impression of something, either someone who was around the area who saw the accident tells Hall, or Hall, simply by looking at the cursed monkey, he knows what happens, right? The monkey can talk to Hall telepathically, and that way you know what happened to the victim. So I thought that was brilliant. And like many of his other novels and short stories, if not all, you don't fully know where the story's going. You're constantly guessing as to where the story is going to lead. And that's something I love about this short story, is that even though you get a rough idea of what the premise of the story is, you don't necessarily know how it's going to end or where it's going to lead to, right? And not only that, you also get the past and the present, right? You get the story is told through the present, and then Hall reminisces about the past, right? What happened in the past, and little by little you get the story in little pieces, right? And you could kind of connect all of them together at the very end, and that's something I like as well from the short story. And finally, the ending. My biggest thing about films, movies, and stories, novels, short stories, is the ending. The ending has to end well. The biggest thing for me is the ending, and the ending to this short story, as well as damn near all the Stephen King novels I've read and short stories I've read from him, it ended amazingly. At the end of this short story, Hall has finally got rid of the monkey. He puts it in the bag with rocks, goes into the middle of this lake, and drops the monkey down in the deepest part of the lake. As you're reading the ending, I thought that Hall was going to die. I seriously thought he was going to die, especially when he was battling the wind and the water to get back to the shore. I seriously thought he was going to die, and that's the way the story ended. But it didn't. It ended in a good note. He gets back to his boy, and he survives. What I love the most about the ending is the fact that Hall, he gets this idea that down the road, these strangers, a father and son, are going to be fishing, and they're going to fish out the bag with the monkey in it, and the curse will continue. He kind of shrugs it off and he's like, not my problem. I'm just glad that my family is safe. But what I love about it is that the curse continues, right? And not to mention, you got the article at the very end of the short story that talks about all these fishes dying in the lake, mysteriously dying, right? This little article, that's what I love the most about the short story. Evil is still lurking. The monkey didn't necessarily disappear. He's still there and is awaiting for its next victim. Now let's talk about the movie. Now, the movie was bloody, was dark, it had dark humor, it was sarcastic, and simply fun to watch, right? Nothing serious at all. And it kind of reminded me of Final Destination, which is pretty funny because there's a new Final Destination coming out. I don't remember when, but I know it's this year. It reminded me of Final Destination, only humorous. The main point about this movie, and I believe Osgood Perkins talks about it in one of his interviews, is the humor. He really wanted to make this film humorous. Dark humor. Yes, it's a horror. It's scary. There's a lot of intense scenes, but the main part of this film is the humor. And I like that he did that. I like how this film here is all about the humor. And the deaths, just like the Final Destination, they're pretty creative. Lots of the deaths, did not expect them to come. Like, it was one of those movies that, like, the death just came so abrupt and so random that you just kind of sat there like, what the heck did I just watch, right? I thought it was funny. It wasn't like the Terrifier 3, where it was just a clown murdering people, and that's that. The gore had some creativity to it. It came out of nowhere. It was abrupt. It was creative. It was funny. Something that I loved about the movie is that it follows the short story, the plot of the short story. You still have Hall and Bill, right, the brothers, and many of the characters. Sorry, I woke up this morning and I was feeling it. I feel under the weather. So if you see me tearing up, it's not because I'm crying, but there are many differences with the movie and the short story. For example, the monkey in the movie has drums, whereas in the short story, he has cymbals. It kind of reminded me of the monkey off of Call of Duty Zombies, where you got to crank up the monkey and throw the monkey to distract the zombies. That's what it reminded me of. That's one difference. You have the movie was more about the relationship between the brothers than it was about Hall and the monkey. That's something that kind of caught me off guard. It was more about the brother, right? The twins, how they had this beef. Well, at least Bill wanted to kill Hall. But it was more about the brothers than it was about the monkey and Hall individually. And of course, in the short story is scary and it has a serious tone to it. Whereas the movie, humorous. You also have great acting in this film. Theo James, the actor who plays Hall, loved his acting in this film. He was funny. I love how he got to play both brothers when they were adults. Osgood Perkins is in the film as well. I'm starting to really like Osgood Perkins as an actor and as well as a director here. You got Tatiana Maslany, I believe that's how you pronounce her, who plays the mother. She was really funny in the film. Great actor. So you do have a lot of good acting in this film as well. And finally, you have the ending. The ending of this film was so strange. It was one of those movies that you finally get to the ending and it was like, what did I just watch? And that's what I kind of expected to see from this film. You have the entire town going down in flames, people dying, and everyone is dying in such just bizarre, just crazy ways. And not to mention, you have the Horsemen of Death, right? The Horsemen of Death, for those who don't know, it's basically in the Bible, I believe the section is called Revelation. You have 4 horsemen. You have the horsemen of conquer, war, plague, and death, right? If I'm not mistaken. And in this film, you see the horseman of death. He's just walking across as they're at the stoplight. And I thought that was pretty cool. And then finally, the movie ends with the bus full of the high school kids cheering on, and then they get decapitated by the incoming truck, which is just like, wow, this movie is something else. Lastly, because I watched Longlegs and I also watched this movie here, kind of want to compare them. They're the polar opposite of each other, right? Longlegs was a serious horror movie, whereas this one was more humorous and just you can't take this movie serious, right? And I don't mean that in a negative way. When you go watch this movie, you're watching it just to have fun. It's not like Longlegs where you're trying to figure out who Longlegs is and all this stuff. It's not serious. It's just a fun movie to watch. Overall, I really liked the film. It was a fun movie to watch. I would say that this movie was a good film, but it wasn't as good as Longlegs. I still think Longlegs is better. It's the best horror film of 2024 and maybe of this year. Who knows? If we're talking about the plot of both the short story and the movie, I would have to go with the short story as being my favorite. The way Stephen King wrote this short story was awesome. The plot and everything. It was a solid short story. Again, the ending, really, really great ending. Whereas the movie, the ending was just kind of like, Again, it was just a fun movie to watch, nothing serious. So I would say that the short story was better than the film. And we can't forget about the post-credit scene. I thought it was going to be about the monkey, but it's not. There is a post-credit scene, if you guys didn't stay behind. It's about Perkins' new upcoming film, Keeper. It looks pretty good. I might watch it. So that being said, that was my review for both the short story and the movie, The Monkey. Again, if you want to read the short story, it's in Skeleton Crew. You can get the cool movie front cover like this one here. That is it. I thought the short story was better than the film, but that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time I finish a book or finish watching a movie.